universities have been accused of running Mickey Mouse degrees as a way of staying afloat financially. Now, they are advertising degrees in rap music, esports and social media for students who don't make their predicted A-level grades and have to go through clearing. Now, results are out in England and Wales tomorrow. They came out last Tuesday in Scotland, I think. Critics have said that while these degrees might sound fun, they may lack the academic rigour due to low entry requirements. Here's an example of sort of video games that you could be studying as part of one of these gaming degrees. This is called Arena of Valor. Now, there are I watched this and I thought, gosh, that's unusual. Lots of different characters. It looks very sort of fantasy orientated. I'd never heard of it myself. There are 200 million registered players worldwide. This is not a new thing. This is not unusual. This is an industry that is massive, but it's hard to imagine that when you're not involved in it yourself. So are these degrees worth their money? Paula, what do you think?
Of course they're worth their money. Look, in terms of the computer industry, in terms of EA Games specifically, we're talking about a $347 billion worldwide market. Why on earth would you not want your child or a young adult, whoever, if you're going into a second job, for example, you know, you've had your career sitting behind a desk, Albie, and you want to kind of branch out and do something different. Why wouldn't you think about these growth industries? And the research tells us we're looking at something like a 16% jump in that figure over the next 10 years.
Albie, you weren't looking very impressed with that.
No, look, I have nothing against the gaming industry. It is a hugely growing industry. I don't disagree with any of the sums of money that you were talking about. What I disagree with is this idea that you need to study at a university in order to excel in it. The people that run these companies did not study esports at university. The people who are top gamers did not study esports or gaming at university. They're either talented businessmen or they're talented gamers, and they get into it when they're young. The businessmen may have studied something like economics or business studies or something tech-enabled software, for example. The coders making that game, which is played by 200 million people, I can tell you for free, they did not study e-gaming at university.
But how do we learn for them? Let's say, as I said, you've got some young adults, and this is particularly in relation to the rap degree that everybody's been, quite frankly, a snob about. Because if you told me that this was a degree in classics, everybody would be saying, oh, this is fantastic. We've got this rap degree that's been around since about 2019, by the way. And what we were told in the research that was done before it was turned into a degree by Birmingham University, that 11 to 15-year-olds who weren't engaging in school, who didn't understand or weren't able to communicate in the way that they wanted to in terms of music and with computer games, etc., when they realised that there was a degree pathway that included that type of interest, they stayed in school. It was something like a 95% uptake.
Why shouldn't it be part of an existing music course?
I'm going to have to, well, it's an interesting point. I'm going to have to pause you both there for a break, but get those calls in. I want to know if you think degrees in video games or rap are worth the time and money. And later, we're also going to be asking if we're going to get stuck back into whether a degree in video games is a waste of time. And we're going straight to the phones now to speak to Graham from Perth. You heard what the panel had to say before the break. What's your thoughts when it comes to these so-called Mickey Mouse degrees?
I don't agree they're Mickey Mouse degrees at all. I mean, the video game industry is worth billions to this country. I live in Perth, and University of Dundee, and Dundee is the centre of the video games industry in the UK.
Yes, it's great for Britain.
And they need so many different people to make even the simplest computer games. You need sound engineers. Yes,
so Graham, I'm going to pause you there only because you're absolutely right. They need so many people to work on it. But as Albie pointed out, they need programmers, they need business minds, they need lots of people with different skills. Do they need somebody with an overview of the industry? Is it a bit like studying media studies as opposed to the skills of becoming a cameraman or someone who's script writing or a journalist who's focusing on the key details of a topic? Are you better to study something that is more specific than a general thing of an industry?
No, because you need an overview. You've got to know how everything's interlinked. how all the different departments are linked, how they all work together. I bet you couldn't go over to the cameraman and take over his job.
I certainly could not. No, John, you're safe.
You'd need maybe not degrees, but you certainly need an awful lot of knowledge, and you probably do need a degree to get into do camera work and things like that. I mean, all these Mickey Mouse degrees that the government come out with, when you look into them, very few of them are actually Mickey Mouse degrees. I mean, even haberdashery and things like that. People make a lot of money making bespoke items.
Graham, you're absolutely right. And maybe it is worth just going in and doing a degree that you're incredibly passionate about, because at the end of the day, with passion, you're more likely to get a bit of success.
Start working in the industry.
Yeah, but
don't get into thousands of pounds of debt and just get straight to work.
How easy is it to do that? You're talking about the people who are now, the 200 or 20,000, whatever it is, who have signed on to those computer games. But they were there at the beginning. What do we do to help those who want to now get into the industry, to help them to network?
Well, I mean, there's a severe lack of apprenticeships, which might be part of the problem. Let's now speak to Professor Chris Headland, Head of Games Institute at the University of Staffordshire. Welcome to the show, Chris. Tell us a little bit about what the degree is at Staffordshire, what they offer their students.
So we offer a range of courses in the video games industry, from games design, development, games art, through to esports, which we've already discussed.
So they can do specific. So you could go into coding, for example, for gaming.
Absolutely, yes. And there's quite although there is some truth that, yes, programming is a skill. Games programming is very much a sub-discipline of that skill, which has very specific requirements and a specific knowledge base behind it.
Now, part of the criticism is that these degrees have popped up in order to help students that maybe didn't reach the qualifications that they wanted to get for other degrees. What sort of qualifications do you need to get in order to take your video gaming course, your esports course?
So with us, it's 112 UCAS points, so about BBC. But there's really no evidence to substantiate that these are popping up to kind of approach clearing. I mean, these courses have existed. For example, Staffordshire University, we've been teaching video games development for 20 years this year. So long before the kind of financial crunch came in. Esports came in 6 years ago. And actually, most of these courses are well within or ahead of recruitment targets too. So these aren't typically the courses that students are going for through clearing.
Well, the other criticism is for these courses is that although these industries are billion-pound industries, they're quite hard to access. There's probably very few jobs in it. So what sort of jobs are your students getting after they qualify in your degree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that just isn't the case. I mean, if you take the video games industry globally, you take film and music, add them together, video games is still bigger. It's one of the fastest growing employers in the technical sector. So it really is a huge number of work. But also these skills are fairly transferable as well. I mean, if we take esports, because that's been one of the focuses. Esports combines business management, community management, people management with digital media, broadcast, journalism. And actually, as a container, as a degree container, it's one of the few courses that actually brings those skills together. And beyond the esports industry, one of the big employers of esports graduates, things like Formula One, and community managers for massive organisations.
I don't have any issue at all saying that the industries that we've just been talking about, esports, rap as part of music, are incredibly important industries. I just question the need as whether or not we need degrees so specific for people to go into them. I mean, what did you study when you went to university? Not masters, but an undergraduate.
So you could write a book about my educational history. I actually started in design and education, and I've moved through different fields. And actually, when I studied design, there was a big national campaign about design being a Mickey Mouse course, and now it's reached it's become one of the accepted courses now. I don't disagree. there's a few things worth considering with that as well. Every discipline is a subdiscipline of something else. When computer science first came out, that was a subdiscipline of mathematics. And again, it was seen in very similar light. Environmental science as a subdiscipline of biology was looked at in the same way. Whenever these innovative course portfolios come forward, there is a pushback. Since Galileo, I mean, this has been happening for quite a long time. And yes, there is a big trend of programmers. My PhD masters are both in computer science, have gone into the games industry. But the specific degree does give you a certain angle of a real understanding of the industry and the nuances of how that industry works.
So your recommendation...
But the other thing is...
Sorry, carry on.
The other thing I was going to say is that there is an inclusion piece here as well. What we see from innovative course portfolios is that it often attracts a demographic of students who may not normally go to university, who may be put off by some of the more traditional disciplines. Sorry, I cut you over.
No, you're all right. I want to get to calls as quickly as possible, but that's been so interesting, Chris. I had no idea that actually when you put the film and TV industry together in terms of ability to get jobs, the video gaming industry is still even bigger than that now. That's amazing. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. Let's go to the calls now. Charles from North Ayrshire, what do you think about a degree in esports or video gaming?
I would say it was crap for the simple reason is...
Oh, well, let's mind our language there. Rubbish.
Oh, sorry.
Charles.
Sorry. I would turn and say, if you go back to the 90s war games, this is basically us. We're recruiting 13 to 15 to 18-year-olds who are gamers, and that's what it's all about now. It's nothing to do with university. We just want gamers. Doesn't matter you get a degree, doesn't matter you've got anything. If you're good on a console, you can rule the world.
You've got me confused here, Charles, because first you said that the games, the degrees are rubbish, but you think if you're good at a game, you can rule the world.
But you don't have to be good at a game. If you're a gamer, you play all these games, you get into these championships, then you get recruited.
Yeah, but Charles, it's not just about the gamers, it's about the people that design the games, it's about people that organise these events, it's about the business people that sell the games to people, it's about the advertisers that make you want to buy those games, it's about the psychologists that will be involved in making the games more addictive and harder, and all of these other jobs that are involved in an industry that isn't just about sitting in front of a screen and pressing some buttons on a console. I have to say, actually, I think Chris might have converted me there. I'm not sure he's converted you, Charles, but thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls. We're going to move on.